Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to day 66 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4. And devotees, we are in chapter 25, which is titled Description, the descriptions of the characteristics of King Puranjan. And we are in the section number 4, from verse 10 to verse 19, which is titled, Narada begins telling the story of Puranjan. And actually yesterday we read the verses, all the verses, and we read the verse and purport of verse 10, the very beginning. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchkalpatarubhyas Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Right, yes, so we're in section, what did they say, 4. Narada begins telling the story of King Puranjan. And we just read yesterday verse 10 with the purport at least, that in the past there was a king named Puranjan. He had a friend Avigyata, the unknown one, who no one could understand. Right, okay, so verse 11. King Puranjan began to search for a suitable place to live, and thus he traveled all over the world. Even after a great deal of traveling, he could not find a place just to his liking. Finally, he became morose and disappointed. Right, okay. So Puranjan is not happy trying to find a place to live, although he's a king. So let's have a look at the purport. Prabhupada says, the travelings of Puranjan are similar to those of hippies. Generally, the hippies are sons of great fathers, not always poor, but they abandon their fathers and travel all over the world. Yes, so that's what Puranjan was doing, just traveling around. So Prabhupada then sort of changes the subject. In the verse, there was the use of the word Prabhu. Yes, in the second line, Babrahma Pritivim Prabhu, that he traveled all over the world in order to become an independent master. That was his idea. So in general, the living entity in this material world wants to become an independent master, Prabhu. But actually we're not Prabhu, we're servants of the Lord. But when we give up the shelter of Krishna, as we've done, and we try to become an independent Prabhu, we may travel all over through 8,400,000 species of life, many planets, and just, really travel. So a living entity then, in general, wanders around. Prabhupada refers to Narottam Das Thakur, who sung Karma Kanda Jnana Kanda Kevala Vishera Bandha, which means the path of karma kandya, fruit of activities, path of jnana kanda, impersonal speculation. They're just like strong pots of poison. Amrita balia yeba kai, nana yoni sada pire. A person who mistakes this poison to be nectar and drinks it travels in different species of life. Well, that's obviously a serious problem, isn't it? If you think poison's nectar, so you just drink it up, you're going to have a serious problem. Kadarya Bhakshana Kare. According to his body, he eats all types of abominable things. And Prabhupada gives classic example of the hog. The hog likes to eat stool, or a crow. Prabhupada, maybe not as often as he talks about a hog, the hog's eating habits, but sometimes he does talk about the crows. He eats rubbish at the rubbish dump. He even, Prabhupada says, he even eats pus and mucus, Hare Krishna, and he enjoys it. Oh, Lord. So Srila Narottam Das Thakur is pointing out the living entity is traveling in different bodies and eating all abominable things. And when he doesn't really become happy after all of that, he becomes morose, or he takes to the ways of the hippies, just drugging and just trying to find some cheap pleasure and just sort of sit there in a daze, intoxicated daze. Puranjan couldn't find a suitable place. And Prabhupada explains this is because in any form of life, on any planet, any situation, doesn't matter. We can't be happy. Because everything in the material world is material. And we are spiritual. So there's this fundamental incompatibility, like the square peg and the round hole, or like the fish out of water. There's this just totally fundamental incompatibility. So as the verse says, living entity independently wants to become Prabhu. But as soon as we give up that idea and become servants of the Lord, happiness comes. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Miche Maira Vashe Yacha Beshe Kacha Habadubu Bai. Radha Krishna Bol Bol Bolire. Radha, what is it? Anyway, it's a song we used to sing in Berry Place. Yeah, regularly. Radha Krishna Bol. So, my dear living entity, why are you being carried away by the waves of Maya? And Prabhupada then quotes Bhagavad Gita 1861, which is also quite often quoted here in the Bhagavatam. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudrani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. So on we go to the fourth paragraph, that the living entity is being carried on the machine of the body. So many different species, so many different machines on so many planets. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is asking, why? Why are we doing this? And it's just a super excellent question, and there's just no good answer. I mean, there's a very clear answer, but it's not a good answer like, yeah, it's great, it's wonderful. Not a good answer like that. So why are we doing this? we should surrender to Krishna. And then we'll become happy. Yes. Prabhupada refers to, it's the same verse, same song. Radha Krishna bol re subai. Jiva Krishna das evishvas, kali tara dukanai. Radha Krishna bol re subai. Goes like that somehow. Something like that. Yeah, because we're trying to find enjoyment, but kale tara dukkha nai, we're just finding suffering. But as soon as we, Prabhupada says, confront Krishna, but let's just say as soon as we meet Krishna, it's the editors really, Krishna advises, sarva dhaman parichaja mamikam sharanam vraja. Aham tam sarva papabhyo mokshaya vimashuchaha. Just abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me. I'll deliver you from all sinful reaction, do not fear. 18, Bhagavad Gita, 1866. And this is a mega purport, at least it's got many paragraphs, even though generally they're fairly short. So paragraph 6, if we do like that, if we surrender to Krishna, we're immediately relieved from traveling around, body to body. Prabhupada quotes the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 151, which is also quite often quoted in the Bhagavatam. Brahmanda Brahmate Kuna Bhagavan Jeev. If, while traveling, living entities fortunate enough to get the association of devotees and become a devotee, then the devotee's real life begins. So this movement of Krishna consciousness is giving all the wandering living entities the chance to take shelter of Krishna and thus become happy. And devotees, there is a 7th paragraph. Also, Prabhupada makes the point at the beginning of it, but in this verse the words Vimana Eva are significant. Let me just check. Vimana Eva. Becomes Vimana, not Vimana. Vimana means morose. He becomes morose. We become morose. So Prabhupada explains even Indra is full of anxiety. What to speak of us? And another famous verse, Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, verse 16, confirms from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, they're all places of misery, where repeated birth and death take place. So, Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by pointing out that in this material world, the living entity is never satisfied. Even as Brahma, Indra, Chandra, so much anxiety, because we've accepted the material world as our place of happiness, but it's not. It's just a very unfortunate situation disguised as a nice-looking place. Verse 12. King Puranjan had unlimited desires for sense enjoyment. Consequently, he traveled all over the world to find a place where all his desires could be fulfilled. Unfortunately, he found a feeling of insufficiency everywhere. It was never enough. So, in the purport, Prabhupada begins by referring to Vidyapati, great Vaishnav poet who Lord Chaitanya appreciated a lot. Tatala saikate vari bindu sama, sutamita ramane samaje, which means material sense gratification, society, friendship, and love is compared to a drop of water in a desert. A desert requires oceans of water. If only a drop is there, it's practically pointless. So similarly, living entity, us, we're part and parcel of the Lord, and the Lord is Anandamayo Vyasat. Vedanta Sutra says, full of enjoyment. And we are part and parcel of him, so we're seeking complete enjoyment, of course. But that complete enjoyment cannot be achieved separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as the living entity, as we wander, we can just think back on our lives. I can think back on my life before Krishna consciousness, that I was wandering around, sure. Yeah, it was really not a nice situation. But I was getting a little enjoyment here, a little enjoyment there, just a little, but not real satisfaction, and a lot of anxiety. Oh, Krishna. So that's Puranjan's situation. Puranjan is representing us. Actually, he's representing Prachana Barishat, but by extension, he's representing us, the wandering living entities, meeting frustration, ultimately at every turn. So, Prabhupada gives a couple of three, looks like three examples to illustrate the point that a deer hears the hunter with some sort of musical wind instrument making beautiful sounds. And so the deer is attracted and comes towards that music, but then the hunter kills him. And the fish likes eating. Of course, you see all these animals, they just spend their days eating, pretty much. So the fish likes eating, but then he sees the bait of the fisherman on the hook, and he eats that and loses his life. And a third example Prabhupada gives of an elephant, very strong, but when attracted by the female elephant, then he may fall into the hole and be caught. So Prabhupada makes the point that in every species, we get a particular body for satisfying the senses, but we just can't satisfy all the senses. We can't really get good satisfaction. There was a song about that in my youth. Anyway, in the human form, we get the opportunity to enjoy the senses pervertedly, creatively. The animals, they just generally just sort of very simple, enjoy in this way, enjoy in that way, enjoy in another way, and that's it. But we, because we're intelligent, or we have some intelligence, we can enjoy in all sorts of ways which nobody thought of before. Yeah. But in attempting that, we end up morose. We do not end up happier than anyone has ever been, because we found some, real secrets how to get great enjoyment. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, as he tries to satisfy his senses more and more, he becomes more and more entangled. Verse 13, once while wandering in this way, he saw on the southern side of the Himalayas, in a place named Bharatvarsha, India, a city that had 9 gates all around and was characterized by all auspicious facilities. Let's have a look at the purport of verse 13. So this is India, good old India, Bharatvarsha. Yes. And in the purport, Prabhupada emphasizes, well, he quotes the famous verse from Lord Chaitanya, Adi Leela 9:41, Bharata Bhumite Hoila Manusya Janmaja, Janmasarta Karikara Para Upaka. Anyone who takes birth in Bharatvarsha has all facilities. They can take advantage of these facilities for both material and spiritual advancement, and in this way make his life successful. And then after making his life successful, one can distribute it all over the world. Yes. So generally a good climate, so you can grow anything. And Prabhupada mentions at the time of Yudhisthira or Lord Ram, people were free from anxieties, no great heat or cold. That in those days at least, Yudhisthira or Ram, the 3 miseries were absent, adhyatmic from other living entities, or adhyatmic from your own situation, adibhotic from other living entities, adidaivik from natural disturbances or the demigods. But now, Prabhupada makes the point, now India is disturbed. Well, anyway, let's not get into it, but yeah, they're trying to become materially advanced for sense gratification, but they're in the process of finding that it doesn't really work. But anyway, still, the culture there in India is such that one can attain the goal of life, liberation, easily. So to take birth there, one must have done something pious in the past. Right, so on we go deeper into the purport. There's a 3rd paragraph. Prabhupada says the word lakshita lakshanam indicates the human body from Bharatvarsha is very auspicious. Vedic knowledge is readily available. Varnashram is there. Other countries, Western world particularly, may have material facilities, but they don't have the facility for spiritual development. So, therefore, Prabhupada mentions his formula, the blind man and the lame man working together. In India, the material facilities are not so advanced like in the Western world. So in that sense, in India, people are materially lame. But in the Western world, people have no idea how to live, no access to Vedic literature, and all they know is sense gratification. So they're blind to the realities of life. So, but if the blind man gets on the shoulders, no, if the lame man gets on the shoulders of the blind man, then the lame man on the shoulders of the blind man can direct, do this, do that, do so many things, and create success for both. Prabhupada calls it andapangu nyaya. Yes. So, but individually, they can't really do much. So the Krishna consciousness movement is spreading and giving all facilities for material advancement and spiritual advancement. The Indians, with their spiritual advancement, Now they're getting materially stronger, but let's hope their material success doesn't cloud the spiritual side, so they forget the spiritual side. And this movement is spread all over the Western countries. So the blind people there who don't know anything about life, they're getting that knowledge, and so they can improve their materially advanced situations can be spiritually improved. So Prabhupada makes the point that the body has been called a city of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, a genital organ, and a rectum. That is 9. So when the 9 gates are clean and working properly, then you know the body's healthy. Prabhupada makes the point, in the villages in India, people keep the gates clean. They rise early, bathe, go to the temple for Mangal Arati, chant Hare Krishna, take prasad. Well, some do, some still do. Many don't, really. But some still do, much more than in the Western world. And like this, you can take advantage of the facilities of human life. And like this, we're introducing ISKCON all over. Yes. So India, of course, was abused by the foreigners, but now the foreigners and the Indians should combine, or they have been combining since Prabhupada's time. That's a fact. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, then the lame man of India can walk with the help of the Westerner, and the blind Westerner can see with the help of the lame man. In short, the material advancement of the Western countries and the spiritual assets of India should combine for the elevation of all human society. Verse 14, that city was surrounded by walls and parks, and within it were towers, canals, windows, and outlets. The houses there were decorated with domes made of gold, silver, and iron. Like really quite a city, quite a city. So Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, now, because the whole thing is, the city is the body, right? There are 9 gates of the city, and that idea represents the 2 eyes, 2 ears, etc. These parts of our bodies. So Prabhupada now applies what this verse has said about the city to the body. Prabhupada says, the body is protected by walls of skin. The hairs on the body are compared to parks, and the highest parts of the body, like the nose and head, are compared to towers. Wrinkles and depressions on the body are trenches and canals. The eyes are windows, the eyelids are protective gates. So there are 3 types of metal mentioned, which represent the 3 modes: gold, silver, and iron. Gold for goodness, silver for passion, iron for ignorance. And the body is considered a bag containing 3 elements, Prabhupada says. Tri dhatu, mucus or kapha, bile, pitta, and air, vayu. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, yes, yatma buddhi kunape chidatu ke. According to the Bhagavatam 1084:13, one who considers this bag of mucus, bile, and air to be the self is considered no better than a cow or an ass. Verse 13. The floors of the houses in that city were made of sapphire, crystal, diamonds, pearls, emeralds, and rubies. Because of the luster of the houses in the capital, the city was compared to the celestial town named Bhagavati. So Prabhupada explains further the city as an illustration of the body. In the city of the body, the heart is the capital. Just as in any country, the state capital is very nice, Buckingham Palace, and in India also, in America, the White House in India. In Delhi, I think they're building a new one. So Prabhupada says, just as the state capital is very gorgeous, the heart is filled with various desires and plans for enjoyment, which we think are gorgeous. We're going to enjoy so much. So such plans are compared to jewels, like sapphires, rubies, pearls, and emeralds. And in this way, the heart becomes the center for all planning for material enjoyment. Verse 16. In that city were many assembly houses, street crossings, streets, restaurants, gambling houses, markets, resting places, flags, festoons, and beautiful parks. All these surrounded the city. Right, so the capital is being described, Prabhupada says. The heart of the body can be compared to the assembly house, Prabhupada says. The living being is there along with the Paramatma. Yes. Prabhupada again quotes Bhagavad Gita 15:15. So the heart is the center of remembrance, forgetfulness, and deliberation. Okay, then Prabhupada goes on. In the body, the eyes, ears, and nose are different places of attraction for sense enjoyment. The streets are the different types of air blowing within the body. The yogic process for controlling the air in the body and different nerves called susumna, path of liberation. Okay. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the body is also a resting place, because when the living entity becomes fatigued, he takes rest within the body. The palms and the soles of the feet are compared to flags and festoons. Verse 17. On the outskirts of that city were many very beautiful trees and creepers encircling a nice lake. Also surrounding that lake were many groups of birds and bees that were always chanting and humming. So yes, Prabhupada says that since the body is a great city, there must be places with like lakes and gardens for sense gratification. Prabhupada says, here the body parts referred to indirectly are those which incite sexual impulses. Because the body has genitals, when the living entity becomes the right age, male or female, they become agitated by sex impulse. A male child is not agitated seeing a beautiful woman, although the organs are there. So therefore, the favorable conditions surrounding the sex impulse are compared to a garden or a nice solitary park like that. And Prabhupada says that it is said that if a man in a solitary place doesn't become agitated upon seeing a woman, he is considered to be a brahmachari. Isn't that interesting? A type of definition of who or what really is a brahmachari. But then Prabhupada says this is almost impossible because the sex impulse is so strong. Just by seeing, touching, talking, contacting, thinking of the opposite sex, even subtly, one becomes sexually aroused, impelled. Therefore, brahmacharis, sannyasis, they're prohibited from associating with women, especially alone in a secret place. Shastra, Prabhupada points out that Shastra says one should not even talk to a woman in a secret place, even if she's one's daughter, sister, or mother. That's pretty amazing. I mean, that's pretty amazing. People would consider it pretty amazing, but it's pretty powerful, actually. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the sex impulse is so strong that even if one is very learned, he becomes agitated in such circumstances. If this is the case, how can a young man in a nice park remain calm and quiet after seeing a beautiful young woman? So, devotees, we go on to verse 18, continuing the description of the city and the parallel with the body and all these types of material phenomena. So 18, the branches of the trees standing on the bank of the lake received particles of water carried by the spring air from the falls coming down from the icy mountain. So Prabhupada says that here the word hima nirjara is particularly significant. Hima nirjara means waterfall. Yeah. The waterfall represents a kind of liquid humor or rasa relationship. So in the body there are different types of humors or rasas or mellows. And of course the supreme one is the sexual mellow, adi rasa. And when the adi rasa, the sexual mellow, comes in contact with the spring air moved by Cupid, it becomes agitated. So Prabhupada points out that, in other words, all of these are representations of rupa, rasa, gandha, shabda, and sparsha. Rupa means form, rasa means taste, gandha means aroma, smell, shabda, sound, and sparsha, touch. So the wind is sparsha or touch, waterfall is rasa or taste, and the spring air is kusumakara, smell or gandha, fragrance, like that. Yeah, and rupa we mentioned is form. What else is there? Shabda is sound. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, all these varieties of enjoyment make life very pleasing, and thus we become captivated by material existence. Verse 19. In such an atmosphere, even the animals of the forest become non-violent and non-envious like great sages. Consequently, the animals do not attack anyone, or did not attack anyone in this place, in the city. Over and above everything, or it's not in, but it's around the city. Over and above everything was the cooing of the peacocks. Any passenger passing along that path was invited by that atmosphere to take rest in that nice garden. So Prabhupada explains that the peaceful atmosphere in the forest, very nice, and even the animals are non-violent, non-envious. That peaceful atmosphere, it represents peaceful family life with wife and children in the forest. The children are compared to the animals, but the animals are non-violent, but they're still animals. Anyway, okay. But sometimes the wives and the children are called Swajanakya Dasyu, burglars in the name of kinsmen. Prabhupada doesn't use that term yet. I'm sure it's going to, the verse doesn't in the Sanskrit. So a man works hard to earn, but in the end, his wife and children plunder his hard-earned money, just like a person in the forest is attacked by thieves and burglars who take his money. But still, in family life, the very nice noises of the wife and children, they seem like the cooing of the cuckoos in the garden of family life. And so the man thinks, very sweet, very nice. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, being invited by such an atmosphere, the person who's passing through such a blissful family life desires to have his family with him at all costs. So now we go on to section 5, verse 20 to verse 32. Puranjan meets a woman in the forest. Sounds something extraordinary is about to happen. So let us read the verses first of all. Verse 20. While wandering here and there in that wonderful garden, King Puranjan suddenly came in contact with a very beautiful woman who was walking there without any engagement. She had 10 servants with her, and each servant had hundreds of wives accompanying him. Wow, what is this? 21. The woman was protected on all sides by a 5-hooded snake. She was very beautiful and young, and she appeared very anxious to find a suitable husband. Verse 22. The woman's nose, teeth, and forehead were all very beautiful. Her ears were equally very beautiful and were bedecked with dazzling earrings. 23. The waist and hips of the woman were very beautiful. She was dressed in a yellow sari with a golden belt. While she walked, her ankle bells rang. She appeared exactly like a denizen of the heavens. 24. With the end of her sari, the woman was trying to cover her breasts, which were equally round and well placed side by side. She again and again tried to cover them out of shyness, while she walked exactly like a great elephant. Okay, verse 25. Puranjan, the hero, became attracted by the eyebrows and smiling face of the very beautiful girl, and was immediately pierced by the arrows of her lusty desires. When she smiled shyly, she looked very beautiful to Puranjan, who, although a hero, could not refrain from addressing her. 26. My dear lotus-eyed, kindly explain to me where you are coming from, who you are, and whose daughter you are. You appear very chaste. What is the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. Verse 27, my dear lotus-eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? Preceding, coming in front. Verse 28, my dear beautiful girl, you're exactly like the goddess of fortune, or the wife of Lord Shiva, or the goddess of learning, the wife of Lord Brahma. Although you must be one of them, I see that you're loitering in this forest. Indeed, you're as silent as the great sages. Is it that you're searching after your own husband? Whoever your husband may be, simply by understanding that you are so faithful to him, he will come to possess all opulences. I think you must be the goddess of fortune, but I do not see the lotus flower in your hand. Therefore I'm asking you, where have you thrown that lotus? Verse 29, O greatly fortunate one, it appears that you are none of the women I have mentioned, because I see that your feet are touching the ground. But if you are some woman of this planet, you can, like the goddess of fortune, who, accompanied by Lord Vishnu, increases the beauty of the Vaikuntha planets, so you can, like her, also increase the beauty of the city by associating with me. You should understand that I am a great hero and a very powerful king on this planet. Verse 30, certainly your glancing upon me today has very much agitated my mind. Your smile, which is full of shyness, but at the same time lusty, is agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. Therefore, O most beautiful, I ask you to be merciful upon me. 31. My dear girl, your face is so beautiful with your nice eyebrows and eyes, and with your bluish hair scattered about. In addition, very sweet sounds are coming from your mouth. Nonetheless, you are so covered with shyness that you do not see me face to face. I therefore request you, my dear girl, to smile and kindly raise your head to see me. 32. Narada continued, my dear king, when Puranjan became so attracted and impatient to touch the girl and enjoy her, the girl also became attracted by his words and accepted his request by smiling. By this time, she was certainly attracted by the king. Okay, so we've still got about 10 minutes or something like that. So let us go through as many of the verses with their purports as we're able. So it's section 5, verse 20 to verse 32. Puranjan meets a woman in the forest. Verse 20. While wandering here and there in that wonderful garden, King Puranjan suddenly came in contact with a very beautiful woman who was walking there without any engagement. She had 10 servants with her, and each servant had hundreds of wives accompanying him. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so Prabhupada explains, the body is compared to a beautiful garden. During youth, the sex impulse is awakened, and then intelligence, imagination, they are prone to contact the opposite sex. One becomes very interested with intelligence, figuring out how to contact the opposite sex. So in youth, a man or a woman in search of the opposite sex, uh, a man or a woman is in search of the opposite sex by intelligence or imagination, if not directly. The intelligence influences the mind, and the mind controls the 10 senses. So there you see, devotees, 10. So the lady had 10 senses, 10 servants. Each servant had hundreds of wives, but here we're looking at the 10 servants to start with. So the 10 servants are the 10 senses, 5 for gathering knowledge and 5 which work directly. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, each sense has many desires to be fulfilled. This is the position of the body and the owner of the body, Puranjan, who is within the body. Yeah, so 10 senses, and each 10 servants, they're the 10 senses, and each servant has hundreds of wives, which sounds like many desires. Anyway, let's see how it all evolves. Verse 21, the woman was protected on all sides by a 5-hooded snake. She was very beautiful and young, and she appeared very anxious to find a suitable husband. That was the good old days, wasn't it? Where young women, they wanted to find a suitable husband and not just some guy to engage with in some way. So, okay, let's have a look at the purport Prabhupada's explaining here. The vital force of the living entity includes 5 ears: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. Yes, I don't think we need to go into the details of those at this point. Prabhupada doesn't. So the vital force is compared to a snake. Yeah, 5-hooded snake, actually. Because a snake can live by simply drinking air. What do you think of that, devotees? That's interesting, isn't it? Just like, some animals like bears famously, but not only bears, they hibernate during the winter. For months, they sleep basically for months, and they eat nothing. Nothing. And they live, they don't die. So snakes can live, Prabhupada says, by simply drinking air. So the vital force carried by the air is described as the pratihara, or the bodyguard. Okay. Without a vital force, one cannot live for a moment. So all the senses are working under the protection of the vital force, which is a snake. So, second paragraph, the woman represents intelligence. She's searching for a husband, and this indicates intelligence cannot act without consciousness. And Prabhupada makes the point that a beautiful woman is useless unless protected by a proper husband. Of course, many women nowadays would certainly not agree with that. But at least that is the traditional Vedic perspective, and it's true. Prabhupada talks, quite frequently how women, if they're not protected by their father in their childhood, by a good husband in their youth and sort of middle age, their maturity, and then by their grown sons in old age, particularly when they're younger, in those stages, they'll just become corrupted. Yes, so intelligence must always be fresh. So the word aprodam, which means very young, is used here. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, material enjoyment means utilizing the intelligence for the sake of rupa, rasa, gandha, shabda, and sparsha, or form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. Verse 22. The woman's nose, teeth, and forehead were all very beautiful. Her ears were equally very beautiful and were bedecked with dazzling earrings. So there's a short purport here. The body of intelligence enjoys the sense objects which cover it, such as smell, vision, and hearing. The word sunasam, beautiful nose, indicates an organ for acquiring knowledge by smelling. Similarly, the mouth instrument is for acquiring knowledge by taste, by chewing something. Touching it with the tongue, we can understand its taste. The word sukhapolam, nice forehead, indicates a clear brain, capable of understanding things as they are. By intelligence, you can set things in order. The earrings on the two ears are placed there by intelligence. So Prabhupada concludes the purport, thus the ways of acquiring knowledge are described metaphorically. Verse 23, the waist and hips of the woman were very beautiful. She was dressed in a yellow sari with a golden belt. While she walked, her ankle bells rang. She appeared exactly like a denizen of heaven. And Srila Prabhupada gives a one-sentence purport. Let's just read it. This verse expresses the joyfulness of the mind upon seeing a woman with raised hips and breasts, dressed in an attractive sari and bedecked with ornaments. So, okay, now devotees, the next verse, is 24, and it has a fairly lengthy purport, somewhat lengthy at least. So let's carry on with it tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.